keeping the fabric of a family together when couples go through and navigate the divorce process is never easy, but it's important to have competent representation to protect your rights, including the full and accurate financial representation and disclosure from the other party. It also helps you to protect your rights and responsibilities and privileges with your children. According to the Forbes Advisor survey and CNBC, 46% of Americans today get divorced because of a lack of communication when it comes to career choices and how they affect the dynamics of any family. For my friend, Jonathan Steele, his rise up the legal ranks has been rapid and impressive. In recognition of his profound expertise in family law, Jonathan's skills have earned him the recognition and the accolades of Illinois' Supreme Lawyers magazine as a rising star, an accolade reserved for only the top 2.5% of attorneys across the state who are under 40. He has a soft spot in his heart for also doing pro bono work for those who can't afford accurate and fair legal representation. His mission as an attorney is simple. In family law, it's not only to secure legal outcomes, but also to protect your familiar privacy and future prosperity. He also is an advocate and expert in the field of cybersecurity law, and he uses his expertise in the field to help those who are in need of cybersecurity protection and legal representation. And during my time with Steele, we talked about everything from cybersecurity law to family and domestic violence and Supreme Court law. This, my friends, is a wide-ranging and diverse conversation covering a variety of different and important legal topics. It's a talk that I don't want any of you to miss. So, without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'll take a moment to formally welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to learn all about your journey in law, my friend. Great to see you, and happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you as well. I'm ready when you are.
Absolutely. Now, Jonathan, I know that your ascension through the legal ranks has been rapid and fast, my friend, so I wanted to start our conversation by asking you about sort of your legal ambition and professional ambition and where your professional drive comes from, my friend.
Sure. I'd say, my legal ambition has always been driven by sort of a deep-seated desire to advocate for people that may not have a voice. As early as law school, I realized law is not just about statutes and regulations, but it's people's lives and stories. And so my early career, my work with domestic violence survivors and advocacy for family law reform, I would say stemmed from a drive to create positive, tangible results for people. And it comes from, I'd say, a combination of personal experience and just a strong belief in justice and equity.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I know that one of your missions, of course, is to provide both the legal protections, but also creating a sense of family or familiar representation when you represent your clients, my friend. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your mission or sort of vision as an attorney.
I think it's just to help people. I think lawyers get a bad name sometimes, and there's a few bad apples out there that give us all a bad name. And people assume the worst about lawyers, that we're out to hurt people or just take people's money. And that's just generally not the case. And it's certainly not the case with me. And so, I got into this because I want to help people. And sometimes people can't afford the help they need. And sometimes you need to help them anyway. So I try to balance, clients that can afford it with clients that can't afford it, and just try to help people in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, your expertise in family law has earned you recognition from the Illinois Super Lawyers, a magazine that recognizes some of the top attorneys in Illinois, my friend. So tell me about the honor and why it's important for you to have it under your belt, my friend. What does it mean to you?
I would say that just being recognized as a rising star by super lawyers has been humbling. It's validating. I think that it signifies that my peers and the broader legal community, they recognize the hard work and the dedication that I put into my practice. It feels more than a personal accolade. It's more of a testament to the importance of my work, and I think the important role that it plays in society. So it's motivating me to continue pushing, to continue striving for clients and advocating for their best interests.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also dabble, my friend, in trial advocacy work, and also having in-depth understanding of the rules of evidence and specialized knowledge of the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution Marriage Act, my friend. And as you said, your work with domestic violence as well. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the importance of advocacy as a whole when it comes to family law and domestic violence. How important is that, my friend?
It's everything. To me, I think trial advocacy is the art and science of presenting a client's case in the most compelling and effective manner possible. At the end of the day, you are trying to convince a human being, just one of them. There's no jury. And I think it involves not only a thorough understanding of the law, but also the ability to weave facts, evidence, and legal principles into a coherent and persuasive narrative. To do that, I think it's about being a storyteller, it's about being a strategist, and an advocate all at the same time. So I think, being an effective trial advocate ensures that the clients are served well, that you're able to present their story in a clear and convincing way. And I think it's essential in ensuring a fair outcome for clients and even in negotiation. So I think it's vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this report from Forbes and CNBC, which found last year that almost half of divorces, 46% of those surveyed in this report, says that career choices were the biggest source of conflict in their marriage, and one of the top reasons they got divorced. So tell me about your thoughts on this particular finding and why you think career choices can lead to one of the top reasons for divorce, my friend. I'm curious to get your thoughts there.
Sure. I would agree with it. I think, career choices can certainly be a significant source of conflict in marriage. They can impact individuals' financial stability, work-life balance, personal fulfillment. And I think these choices bring about stress and disagreement and discord. particularly if there is a mismatch in the expectations or sacrifices that one party is willing or unable to make. And I think communication is key. It helps to navigate the conflicts. And I think couples need to have an open and honest discussion about their career goals, their expectations, and also the potential impacts on their relationship. So I think it's vital to find a balance that respects both parties or both partners' aspirations and the health of the marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan, I'm curious to get your thoughts on why you think it's important for people that are going through the divorce process to have a legal representation to protect the best interest of their family. Why do you think it's so important, my friend?
Well, particularly if you are litigating against a lawyer on the other side of the case, to not have your own lawyer, you're disadvantaged from the start. You don't really understand the rules of the game that you're playing, and so you're going to have a hard time fumbling through the process. And a court is going to hold you to the same standards as though you were an attorney. So, to the extent you can afford an attorney, which not everybody can, you're always best suited having an attorney to advocate for you, to navigate the process with you, and to give you guidance and counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I ask you about your community service work and work with cybersecurity, Jonathan, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on the calls for Supreme Court reform, because I know that you're a big understanding Illinois Supreme Court law, my friend. So I'm curious from a more broader perspective, because I know President Biden has called for some sort of Supreme Court reform that includes things like term limits and ethics reform within the Supreme Court, my friend. So I'm curious to get your whole thoughts on the idea of reform within the Supreme Court.
I certainly think it's a dated system. It could use some refreshing. I tend to agree that term limits would be a good idea. I understand the reason behind giving a lifetime appointment, because then justices feel free to make decisions that they think are best and they do it without any sort of political pressure or the pressure of having to run for re-election. But at the same time, times change, and so if you have a justice that's been on the bench until they're 95 years old, they're probably out of touch with current times. And so I think it's appropriate to have a term limit. And I also think, more broadly in terms of reform in general, I think, the tendency or the talk about packing the courts with more justices is a slippery slope that should be avoided. And, we don't want the Supreme Court, especially, to be losing credibility with the public. It's a very important check on political power in our society.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned earlier, Jonathan, you do some pro bono work as well, and I know that community service is important to you. So I'm wondering if you can tell me why giving back is such a pillar of something that's important to you, and if people can't afford legal services, but they still want legal protection. I'm wondering your best piece of advice for people that may not be able to afford legal protection. What would you tell them, my friend?
Sure. To me, giving back it's fundamental to who I am as a person as well as an attorney. I think that access to legal services should not be a privilege reserved for the few, but a right that's available to all, regardless of their financial situation. I think that providing pro bono legal aid allows me to support individuals and communities who might otherwise feel marginalized or overlooked. I think it's a way of ensuring the justice system works for everyone. And it allows me to contribute to the greater good, fostering a more equitable and just society. And for people that are in need, that don't have the means for legal representation, I would encourage them to seek out legal aid clinics, to seek out free legal services. They're usually plentiful. So maybe they have a backlog, but they're out there and they're willing to help. And so you just have to reach out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of family law, as you know, Jonathan, when you go through the divorce process, we all hear the term in the best interest of the child when you have children. So I'm curious from a family law perspective, what sort of legal protection should couples look for when advocating on behalf of their children? I'm curious to get your thoughts there.
It's the most important consideration in a domestic relations dispute. The child always has to be prioritized. Regardless of what side you find yourself on as an attorney, you have to advocate what's best for children. That's just part of our governing code. And, you know, sometimes what's best for a child is adverse to the client's interests, and then we're in a bit of a tough spot. But ordinarily they align, and you have to prioritize it at every juncture. You have to prioritize it when you are deciding, you know, which parent should make significant decisions for the child, which parent should have which particular parenting schedule, what kind of support arrangements are made available, and the core issue in all of those is what's best for the child. So the courts prioritize it, the lawyers prioritize it, and one can only hope that the parents do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got one more legal question before I ask you about your work in cybersecurity. I'm also curious to ask you about the role that men in particular play in the family law process when they go through a divorce process, because it's also important for men to protect their rights, even especially rather if they're an invested parent and want the best interest of the child. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how men can best protect themselves, particularly as they go through this process.
Well, the law is becoming more gender neutral. We're not stuck in the times where the presumption is that mom is better suited to be the primary parent for the child. In most states, the law has evolved, and so now there's a presumption that the child is best served by equal time with both parents. At the same time, at least by way of custom, sometimes men are not able, from a time perspective, to exercise as much parenting time. And I think just it's important to, you know, support the co-parenting relationship, to support mom in their household so that they are demonstrating a willingness and ability to facilitate a relationship between mom and the child, and to really just embrace the time they do have. Try not to get wrapped up in counting of the minutes and more focus on what they're doing with the time that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jonathan, I know that you've also spent quite a bit of time studying all aspects of cybersecurity, my friend, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on what's been the most fascinating part of learning about cybersecurity and how it affects people, my friend, in the work that you do today. Why is this so important to you?
I would say that one of the most fascinating aspects of cybersecurity is the constant evolution of threats and the ingenuity that's required to counter them. It's a dynamic field that requires continuous learning and adaptation. And I think society as a whole needs to understand that cybersecurity is not just a technical issue, but it's a fundamental aspect of both personal and organizational safety. So I'd say, you know, the most important thing that people need to know is the importance of just basic cyber hygiene, using strong passwords, using unique passwords, enabling multi-factor authentication, keeping software updated. and just being knowledgeable and aware of phishing attacks. I think awareness and proactive measures are the key to protecting yourself from cyber threats.
Yeah, and I know, my friend, that you have created a Steel Fortress, my friend, where you leverage your unique blend of legal and cybersecurity expertise to provide comprehensive cybersecurity and privacy consulting, my friend. So tell me about your work on the cybersecurity end of things, my friend.
So at Steel Fortress, we bridge the gap between legal compliance and technical security measures. We offer a holistic approach that ensures our clients are not only meeting regulatory requirements, but also implementing the robust security practices. So we try to offer services that range from risk management, risk assessment, as well as policy development to incident response and employee training. Our goal generally is to empower organizations and families to protect their sensitive data and maintain their reputations by understanding the legal implications as well as the technical solutions that they need for effective cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jonathan, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on a recent research study that was conducted by the Cyber Peace Institute in 2023 and the Geneva Bay, and it found that nonprofits by a mark of 41% were victims of cyber security attacks, my friend. So I'm curious specifically to ask you about nonprofits and the work that they have to do to protect themselves.
The findings that you're mentioning, they're concerning, but at least to me, they're not surprising. I think that nonprofits very often have limited resources for cybersecurity, and that makes them an attractive target for cyber criminals. So the best advice I could give to a nonprofit is to try to prioritize cybersecurity as a critical aspect of their operation. This includes conducting regular risk assessment, implementing strong access controls, providing ongoing cybersecurity training to their staff, as well as establishing incident response plans. So I think partnering with cybersecurity experts can also provide the necessary guidance and support for a nonprofit to strengthen their defenses.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I'm curious from a personal and professional standpoint, how do you define the whole concept of discovering your passion and purpose in life? What does that mean to you, my friend?
I think it's unique to everybody. For me, it's about finding the intersection of what I like to do, what I'm good at, as well as what the world needs. I think just more broadly and generally, it involves some sense of introspection, exploration, trying new things, and learning from every experience you encounter. For me, it was a combination of a passion for the law, my desire to help other people, as well as some sort of infatuation with technology that led me on the current path. It's about being open to new opportunities and continuously seeking ways to align your career in general with your values and interests.
Yeah, and to that point, my friend, I know that you also do a lot of work, as you said before with domestic violence victims and those in marriages as well. So I'm curious to ask you about, how do you think the domestic violence laws have changed or evolved to better protect and advocate for those people in the most need, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, over the years, marriage and domestic violence laws have indeed evolved significantly, and I think they've done so to better protect people and ensure fair outcomes in divorce proceedings. The Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act has been updated over time to reflect changes in societal norms, as well as to provide clearer guidance on issues like child custody and spousal support. The Domestic Violence Act specifically and Stalking No Contact Order Act have strengthened the protections that are out there for survivors of violence or stalking, and they make it easier to obtain orders of protection, ensuring that abusers are held accountable. I think people need to know that these laws are there to help them to safeguard their rights and well-being, and seeking legal advice early can help people to navigate these issues effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned at the outset of our conversation this afternoon, Jonathan, you have accomplished a lot in a short period of time, and certainly a lot before you turn 40, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you about, for any young attorney or any aspiring attorney, what's your best piece of advice when it comes to finding your footing in the profession and being a successful first-time lawyer? What are your thoughts there?
The best advice I could give for a young attorney is to find a mentor, to try to stay curious about the law and just never stop learning. It's the legal field in general is a vast and constantly evolving field. And so having a mentor can provide guidance and support. And I think it's important to always seek opportunities to expand your knowledge and your skills, whether that's through continuing education, through networking, or taking on a challenging case. I think that persistence, resilience, and a commitment to an ethical practice are essential to building a successful and fulfilling career.
Yeah, and my friend, when you look at the law sort of landscape today and environment that we live in, I'm fascinated to ask you if there's any portion or subsection of the law that you're keenly interested in to try to sort of affect things to benefit the most amount of people. So I guess what I'm asking is there something in the law community that you're personally invested in trying to change or adjust so that it can benefit or advocate for more?
It's a good question. I think there are certainly areas of the law that could use some improvement. I think that, for instance, the support laws in the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act, while they have evolved with the times, I don't know that they've evolved in the best way possible. We've moved away from percentage-based orders where, child support used to be based on 20% of your net income or 28% of your net income, and we've moved towards what's called an income shares model, or with regard to maintenance, or formerly known as alimony. We've taken sort of the art out of it and turned it into just a straight math calculation. And I think that is making some judges feel boxed in by the statute. And I think that those particular laws could use some improvement.
Yeah, gentlemen, my final question for you is about legacy, my friend. And when you look at your own personal and professional legacy, I'm curious, how do you want that to be defined?
I hope that my legacy is defined by a positive impact that I've made on the lives of my clients and the community more broadly. Professionally, I aspire to be remembered as a dedicated advocate who advocated for justice, for equity, and the protection of individuals. And personally, I want to be known as someone who gave back generously and who mentored the next generation and worked doggedly to create a safer and more just society. So ultimately, I would hope that my work inspires other people to strive to be the best that they can be, and to use their skills and their knowledge to make a positive change in the world.
Absolutely. And my friend, I'm curious, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
I have a website, steelefamlaw.com. It has all my contact information, my social media handles, all of that. And so visiting my website will put you in touch with me, and I'm happy to help anybody.
Fabulous. Well, Jonathan, I have to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation this afternoon, and I want to thank you for the advocacy you do for the community in terms of giving them fair, accurate, and objective legal representation. And I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.